All right, so I will call a meeting to order at 6:01. And um, our first order of business is to review and discuss the equity response chart, which I cannot share. I assume that someone has that to share.
Give me a second, I'll pull it up. There we go.
I have to get a little closer to my screen here.
Do I need to make it bigger?
I'm good if I'm good now that I get closer.
We'll be able to see as many boxes at once, but
Yeah, it's fine for me the way it was. I mean, if I just had to get closer to see it.
if I need to scroll something, just let me know. And everyone has access to this too, so they can pull up, they should be able to pull this up out of the Google.
So what is up there now is the bottom. There's nothing below that.
There you go. That's the rest of it. Following me. It goes on to another page.
Okay, well, let's stay on the bottom of that page for a moment. I'll read it at my speed, and then if anybody else, I doubt anybody will be slower. So. Are we ready to scroll to the next page? Ready to go to the next page?
That's it. That's it. This page is blank.
Perfect. All right, so so what are people's thoughts on the breadth of what's there, and I guess what are people's thoughts on those responses? Anne?
I think that there's a lot of good information for me there. It's just I'm not really sure how in this format we go about crafting a statement that synthesizes all of those things. So I've been trying to think about how to do that, and I agree with all of the statements that are there. I do like that there's a contrast that helps you determine what the meaning is. But I'm not really sure how to take that chart and move it to a statement. How best to do that in a group situation.
Did you feel like, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this in a way that doesn't just put my kind of perception of it out there, but so maybe I won't. But there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of good stuff, right? And I guess I don't know if some of its outcomes, some of it gets always away from specific to equity, I believe, but it's all good stuff, right? So did anybody else have that sense that because I mean it seems like there's a lot of awesome stuff, right? And some of the responses were quite specific to the term, and then some were more general. I guess what were your thoughts, Julie?
So just kind of putting it all together in my mind, I think I guess just what initially jumps out at me is that there's a lot to equity, and I think sometimes how the lens of someone looking in, somebody might perceive it to be related to one group or another, kind of based on somebody's lens or experience. So I think what I saw here is that it's about a lot of different needs and types of. I don't really want to kind of take away the individuality and the importance of it by just saying a group, but I just think there were a lot of equity considerations to be had, and I think it depends on the lens. It could depend on the situation. It could depend on a lot of things, and I guess what I think a lot of that is captured here, right? Because we all maybe had different lenses when we were responding, and so I guess something that jumps to my mind, just going back to what Anne had said, is that I'm sure we've seen a few different policies, and some of them are very long, some of them are shorter. And I don't think it undermines the importance of what we're doing if we maybe start out with looking at a few policies or 20 policies that may be out there and really saying, I like this one. Here are the things I like about this policy. Here's what maybe applies to us, and kind of how do we customize that then? I don't think, I don't think that starting that way takes away the importance of what we're doing. I don't know we necessarily need to craft something ourselves when there might be, a lot of times other policies, right? We kind of take a framework of other policies in a lot of different areas, and we kind of customize them to our district. And so I would think that there's a lot of good work that's already been done, and we might want to take a look at that. So I probably didn't articulate that in the best way, but I think it's overwhelming, and I think it is hard to just take some of this and craft that ourselves. But that's my take on it initially, just on the top of my head, being number 2 here.
No, that's good. I mean, because I find it a bit overwhelming as well, of just to get my arms around, right? And so, I mean, there's certainly times it's occurred to me that kind of getting a general sense of where we're going might help me to kind of get this conceptual framework and then put some details into it after. I don't necessarily need all the details in it now, but just to, particularly when looking at this, because there's, trying to figure out, okay, so there's good stuff, but is some of it outcomes, or is some of it other associated goals, but not, and equity would help us get there. And I'm not even sure of any of that, but that's sort of my thoughts. I'm just going across my screen here, Karen.
So it's funny, Julie, that you said, maybe we should look at some others. When I looked at this chart, for me, initially it was, okay, these are statements, but how do we apply that to us? And I am one to go and see what others have done to get a feel for that, because much like you guys looking at it, I'm going, okay, it's a lot of information. How do we put that into a document? And I created a document. It's called Defining Equity. And what I did was I went through, and I have, I'm a paper person. I've got Cincinnati Public Schools, Portland Public Schools, Baltimore, and I've kind of gone through different aspects of what they have put in their policies and how they've phrased it. And it's not the things that are in there. I liked some of them because it wasn't just about outcomes. It's what are we doing now? What are we addressing? Some of them were very specific solely to education. Others talked about this one here that I really liked. It talks about maximizing educational success and social emotional well-being, and views each student's individual characteristics as valuable. I like those components, So for me, rather than just the phrases, I tried to find some very specific things that I felt could be tweaked for us, that I just felt were more adaptable to creating a policy. Because I don't think it is just a definition. I think it is very specific things that we need to kind of put together, addressing different aspects of it. That's my take. And that the defining equity thing, I put that in, I don't even remember which folder it's in. It's in the minutes and notes. I think that's just what I put it under there, but it's shared with everyone. And it was just all these different things that I found from different policies, different definitions, articles that I read, and some of them that really resonated with me. So I just tossed a bunch of them in there. But some of these places have amazing structures. And like you said, some of them are 20 pages, some of them are 3 pages. So I think it really depends on how we want to attack that.
Perfect. I'm just digesting a little bit of what you said.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, it's good. It was perfect. It's great. It's just I guess I'm always sort of thinking of, okay, so next step, and I just am like trying to, again, just wrap my arms around stuff. Marcy.
Can't hear you, Mercy.
Okay, now you should be able to hear me. That is a lot to think about, especially considering was at the last meeting. I definitely like the idea of looking at other policies and starting from that. I really like things clear and simple. As far as this chart, the main one that I took away from that, that's sort of like, this is what we're trying to do, is giving students access to the tools they need to learn, thrive, and succeed. In my mind, that kind of covers the whole thing. So what I did in my own notebook is I started with that. That's what we want to do. Then we have, how do we do that? That's where we have, we acknowledge culturally diverse students. I also want to throw in, because I said culturally diverse students, I think socioeconomic issues are probably the biggest issue we have in Salem. So I want to make sure that that doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And then let's see, what else do we have? Like strong school family connections, that would fall into how do we do it? And then at the bottom would be, what are the desired outcomes? So for my brain, I had to kind of do it like that, but I really like to give every student access to the tools they need to learn, thrive, and succeed. I think that was from Anne, but for me, that covers the whole, everything.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. Dave?
So when we're looking at the chart is really asking, anyone who filled it in or is reading it to kind of conceptually understand what the perception of equity is. So it gives you kind of each individual's marker of, these are the boundaries that I set around what equity is. And when I think of equity, these are the things that don't fit within those boundaries. So that's the juxtaposition between the two spots. Next step is, when you read through these, is what are the common themes that tie through? There's two of them to me that jump right out. One of them is identity, and the other one of those is environment. So when you look at, I'll just pull the first one, awareness of a systematic social injustices and recognition of individual and collective actions toward change, responsiveness to cultural needs. Okay, so in one part that's talking about individual and individual needs, and it's also talking about an environment that talks about actions towards change and being responsive to cultural needs. Next piece, that I'm active anti-racist, anti-isms, and author of change. That's more of an action statement to me, and that could fit into either side. So when you kind of look through what are the main themes that come out of each of these, because I am what I what I think you think I am. Identity is not something that's equity. So what's that saying? That's saying that someone from outside of me cannot define me. That's an identity piece. Where is identity found? Well, there's pieces about how I'm identifying myself on the equity side. So so why is that important? When we come to kind of looking at that policy piece, what are the pieces that are going to be most important to policy? Well, there's going to be about those pieces where in a school that we want to be equitable, is that how do we recognize, honor, and cherish, protect, and embolden the individual, while also looking at our environment and making sure that environment addresses change in the other aspects, to honor and cherish those as well, while being mindful of those things we don't want it to be. So when we get to the spot where we're stuck in the weeds and we're looking at, oh, well, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, you have a marker against to measure that against, to say, well, we just need to make sure everyone has the same thing. Well, hold on, because in our equity is not column, we talk about everyone getting the same thing is not equity, that's equality. And equality is not equity. So we have a check against when those pieces go into where the policy falls. Now, there may be another theme in there that, that the group thinks that, hey, this could be a third. Those were the two that just jumped out at me.
So no, and I like that. I mean, as I think back through, I hadn't identified those in my quick read of it here, but I do think that those both seem pretty important as well, right? Because I mean, it seems to me like we can control that. I mean, we can work towards controlling that environment in a way that would then help with the identity piece. It just Chris Niesman having trouble getting on to. I'm not sure. She's having some technical difficulties, so she should be with us shortly. So, how? So, do we feel like we're ready to make some stabs at a statement?
Can I just make a quick comment? I would have to say.
Oh, Julie, I didn't realize you were on. I'm sorry. Please do.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I would have to say Dave probably made a comment closest to my thoughts when I was putting it down here is definitely the identity piece. I mean, I'm part of a religion that is definitely a minority amongst most people. And so people make an opinion about my religion based on what they think I believe instead of what I really believe. And so deep down, that's kind of one of those equity pieces. So that's kind of why I put that in there. Like, I am what I think you think I am. Well, you really don't know who I am, and what I think or what I feel. Sometimes people make outside judgments. And so the identity piece is really strong for me. And I'm a big empowering, I'm the big I am person. So I believe in like action statements, and I believe in like mission statements for myself, and to say that I am this. I am like that statement. I am an active anti-racist, meaning that I want to bring change. I'm not only passive on this, but I want to be assertive in making a change. That's how I think. I like those action statements. I do that with my own kids. So who are you going to be? I am going to be something. And I think that's where the empowerment is we want to be a certain way in our environment and accepting individuals. So, and I do agree with some of this being outcomes, some of this being part of the plan statements. I think like if we talk about courageous conversations, that can be part of an outcome, right? I mean, we want to start having those courageous conversations when they're young, pre-K. We want to start having these conversations so that they're comfortable conversations to have. And so, that could be part of the plan. And then some of it, definitely the environment, like our school. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to, getting a feel for what, through the climate culture surveys, where we need to empower children, where we do feel weakness, where they feel weakness, where we feel we're weak, and matching the two. So I do agree with going to other policies as well. I was on the committee, code of conduct committee, and we definitely looked at other schools' code of conduct. We took a peek at them. We looked at what they emphasized. We had like 4 or 5 different code of conducts from different schools. And then we kind of went through them and kind of decided what pieces we really liked and what pieces were from the government. Like certain things had to be within the document, mandated, versus what we wanted certain wording to say. So I do agree in going that direction as well. Wanting to just have some scaffolding that we can look at and see where could fit. I guess that's all I have to say. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained. Thanks.
No, thank you. Sorry, I didn't call on you. Um,
Bye.
so, I guess, I mean, we're looking at creating a statement, and tonight, not the policy tonight, right? So, I mean, are they one and the same, or are they two separate? Is there a thought that we should create, it makes sense to think about this statement first so that we're in the, that's kind of creating our vision, and then move on to the policy after that? Is that a thought?
I would like to, I think, I'm familiar with a few of the districts in our area, so I know a lot of times people refer to Albany. I know there's some few districts that are a little ahead of us in terms of work. But I think I would like to just see what some of those, because I think a lot of the policies may or may not have statements of kind of their position, and just really see what those look like as well, just to inform that. But I could go either way, but I think just kind of having an overview and just saying, what do we like, what don't we like, and then working from that.
So from some early conversations back, probably right before we got started, I sort of decided not to look at policies right away, to not, just to try to have an organic process of thinking about this a bit. But I'm not married that long. I mean, I feel like we've been at this for a while, and so I think it's been good to not do that, because I feel like I could have potentially just gotten too focused on that and not had as a robust a discussion. So are you saying then, Julie, that it would make sense to look at other policies before we continue on with this statement? Is that your perspective?
I guess I'm just wondering, so I think we have some common, I think probably if we looked at this, we probably have some common threads that we could craft a statement, but I guess I would just like to see a little more of how that applies to the policy. So, again, is our statement kind of defining what we're doing with the policy, or is it a part of the policy? I'm not sure, if it's part of the policy. I'm just wondering, I don't know what that would entail, I guess.
Well, so I actually had the same question as far as what the role of this statement would be. If it's sort of a guiding principle moving forward, it's sort of like our perspective in a nutshell, or is it a intro to the policy, potentially an intro to the policy? What are other people's perspectives on kind of what the role of this statement will be?
I have a bit of an idea. To me, it would be like a mission statement. Kind of like a blank, how mission statement is basically kind of more generalized. And then as you go forward, like it could be an introduction to policy. It could be the policy, as far as the mission statement could be a policy, and then a lot of, a basic policy, and then a lot would go into the plan. A lot might be, what would an environment that's equitable look like, and attributes of that environment. As far as like, I see it as being kind of a blank mission statement, and then breaking down characteristics of the environment we want at school, and then how do we create that environment, meaning more of our action plan. And our action plan would be dictated by our cultural climate, and based on the needs that we see most evident at the time. But I definitely see it more like a mission statement leading into action and what we want to see.
So I really like what you said about, what that environment would look like, because I think that can be, I think that can be very helpful for people to, um, right, go from potentially a statement that, depending on how long it is, that may be a little bit theoretical, and to actually then like a description, examples of the environment. I mean, I would find that very useful for, in general, I guess I find that useful because it kind of paints these pictures of and helps people identify, okay, so we're not fulfilling this mission statement because this environment's nothing like what we think an environment could look like, right? So I think that, I mean, in my mind, that seems like that's plan-ish, not more than policy-ish. Um, and but I think from my perspective, it makes sense to have that somewhere. So in putting the agenda together, Anne, um, what do you see the next 10 minutes of this meeting looking like?
Well, whatever the outcome of this exercise, I think it was just very good that we did this exercise, because I think it began to, at least for me, focus my thoughts on what it was that we were looking for. And it is interesting to hear from everybody else on the committee what their perspectives are. So I think it as we move forward, if we're not ready to come to a general statement about what equity is, I do think that it was a good, for me, eye-opener that we need to do some more work to get to that particular point. And if there's ways for us to take a look at what others are doing, to help maybe give us a direction to look in, even though we may not go there, I think it would be a good thing to look at those other policies. I think the original thought, at least in my mind, when I set the agenda, was that we would take a look at this, we would discuss it, and maybe we would be able to distill a statement from these, the ideas that people had shared. We may not be ready to do that. We may need to really ponder on this a little bit more before we reach it. And it may be, I think the original thought was we would have this statement and then the policy would flow from it. But it may be that this becomes, it becomes something done in real time where we're working on this equity statement and the policy at the same time. Because there's the component parts, and it may not be linear in its development for me.
I just wanted to add one thing, because I probably started this whole conversation of uncertainty, but I guess I think if we wanted to move in the direction of making a statement, there's nothing to say that if we created a statement and then we started looking at the work of others, that we can't say, hey, did we, to reflect on our statement and say, do we want to leave it the way it is, or do we want to add or change it? So, if that is a next step just to guide us, I mean, I guess there's just something to think about as I'm listening to everybody. I don't want to, I feel like I create a lot of uncertainty when we had a little bit of a direction. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, it's a very complex issue, and I don't think there's one straightforward way to come to, the policy or the plan that we want to have. So I do think it's going to be something that's going to take a while to generate.
I kind of like what Julie just said about maybe coming up with our own statement without looking at too much else, and then compare it or contrast it and adjust it as we go. But I do like the idea of kind of coming up with our own thing as our own unique community. Just a thought.
No, I agree, and I think, yeah, that makes sense to me. What each of you have said, the last three people who spoke, that I think it makes sense to work to come up with a statement. That statement's not written in stone, so it can be, if we at some point realize that we can refine it, then we can refine it. But I think that would be useful. I think it'd be useful also for the board to hear from us with a statement like that, and then not just the board, probably even more, and the community, right? I mean, there were I think that there's people who don't have their minds wrapped around it less than we do because and we're just curious, wanting to know kind of what we were up to, where we're headed with this. So I think that would be useful to see that, and then that can, that's kind of our 30,000 feet, and then we start digging into some policies, and if we realize that right, we don't have to be ready and aim and fire, we can kind of ready, fire, and then re-aim if we have to. So
I think that was somewhat the purpose of trying to define equity to begin with, was to kind of get a message out to the community of what our goals were. But I think, as other people said, it doesn't have to be set in stone for the policy. Like, we can add or take away or whatever we feel like needs to be done once we start looking at other policies. But I agree that it might be good to get a statement out to the board and to the community, just so people know kind of what our vision and goals are in general. So I just want to say I kind of agree with what you're saying.
Perfect. So it is it's about almost 20 of, not quite 20 of 7. So we so now I guess one of the other things that had occurred to me was whether this I wonder if it would be advantageous to break up into a couple groups, and just because this is a lot of, from my perspective, sitting here, it feels like it's a lot of people to try to craft a statement with. And is there any objection? We've got 20 minutes. Any objection to splitting us up, and two different teams can sort of work on it and then come back together? I suspect it's not going to be hugely. I think we're going to end up with something similar.
I do like that idea. Like, did we start with something like at Salem Central School, we strive to have an equitable environment, or we strive for equity? Like, are we starting with like a blanket statement like that?
I don't know. Let's see what the two groups come up with.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's open. So.
Okay. All right.
So, I'm just putting people, here we go, I just select them. Actually, if anybody has any other thoughts, it's going to take me just a moment here to do this.
So while Dr. Glover was talking, he said, honor, cherish, embolden. And I'm all about words, and those 3 words together, like, they're strong. We need to get those in there somewhere.
Again, Marcy.
Honor, cherish, embolden. Dr. Glover said that when he was talking, and those 3 words together are really strong. I think that's some good words to get in there.
I think I'm about to move some people to a session. Then maybe not quite yet. All right. Huh.
Yeah, Bob, I know. I came in to see what's going on, and then you have to drag us out.
So I kind of fumbled that coming back in. I left, but I think I left everybody else there, but finally it ended. That's the second time I've done that. So
See?
um,
Sorry, we were working on our technology skills when we got pulled out of session.
perfect. So do we have everybody back? I see Julie, Marcy, Julie. So we're all back. Perfect. Excellent. So this is the other group's statement, right? Somebody want to read that for us? You're muted, Karen. You're still muted.
I can read it.
There you go.
You get off. Okay. So there probably needs to be some other words added in, but we mainly took out or tried to come up with the main points of what we'd want this statement to say. So more than likely it would start off with the district wants to do this, but so creating a barrier-free, safe, and supportive learning environment. An environment that affirms the identity of each student, acknowledging and celebrating the differences of our students to promote individual student success. So the phrasing of that probably needs to be changed, but the main ideas were kind of creating a barrier-free, safe, and supportive learning environment, affirming the identity of each student, and then acknowledging and celebrating the differences of our students. In order to promote individual student success. So to put all those ideas together, the phrasing might need to be changed a little bit, but.
I really like it. I think that's neat. When you see the ours, it's kind of cool how we use different statements, but then we didn't, which is cool.
I like, because we're struggling with an end, and I feel like that could be the end to ours. That's like really, it's amazing. I really like that, affirming the identity of each student and acknowledges and celebrates differences to create a sense of belonging for each child. I like that one in the part that was above there, the sense of belonging. Child.
Yeah, I really like that celebrating differences piece.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, we were trying to, that was something that we were trying to get to. We were using value differences, but I like celebrate.
Right. We felt that cherish was too, we had some steps to get to before cherish. So even kind of from a vision perspective, we weren't sure that cherish was the word we wanted. But no, I like the celebrating piece.
I don't know if, Karen or who had that document, if you can share that document with me, I could paste ours into that so they're all in one document.
Okay, I found the unmute button. Yay me.
Okay.
So it's different when you share. This is already in the equity folder under notes.
Right, but just to make it quick so we can all get out of here, if you can just share it right now, because I'm having a hard time finding some of those. So if you could just share it with me, it'll pop right into my, just share it with me again. And then, perfect. Thank you. Just send it to me again. All right, I'll be right back. All
right, okay.
I really like those words like barrier free and belonging, a sense of belonging. I think those are all really beautiful statements. Good job. I like that a lot.
No, similarly, yeah, I like the affirming and the celebrating. I think those are both good.
Yeah, I feel like celebrating was the word we were missing.
Agreed. And I like affirming as well, right? I mean, I think that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get in here. Karen, I need you to move or hit down so that I can get there so I can add in underneath. Move your cursor. There we go. Thank you. I just couldn't see if I was there. All right, so this was what we had, and we kind of got stuck at the end. So someone else want to read or explain since I put that in there?
See,
What?
You want to read ours, Marcy?
Sure. At Salem Washington Academy, we strive to provide an educational experience that will honor and embolden every student. We recognize that equity for all students requires an understanding that each of our students is unique. We are committed to providing access to the tools and resources each individual student needs to learn, thrive, and succeed. And then we got a little stuck.
Yeah, we wanted to say we wanted to end strong, like what we're committed to, to kind of make that happen, not necessarily give our whole action plan. So I don't know if, I love maybe we commit to creating a barrier or, somehow combining some of that, but creating a barrier-free, safe, and supportive learning environment, or celebrating their differences, but kind of meshing those together, I think might really hit everything.
I agree.
Now, it's interesting because one of the things we were talking about at the end was just we hadn't used the term equity, and I see that you haven't used the term equity either, and we tried to, but it felt a little bit. Then we used it, but it wasn't necessarily clear that if somebody didn't know what equity meant before, they necessarily would from our use of it. So, so it's almost 7:30. I'm gonna have to run because I've got to get boys to bed. So,
All right. Maybe we should just think on this.
Yeah, exactly. I think that we made lots of progress. I think. So why don't we think on this? It's right in the Google Drive there, so we can people can play with it, and I think there's pieces of both of those that I'm kind of happy with the way this turned out. So why don't we end with that then, and people can look at it, and we'll come back next month, and I have high hopes that we'll have a final product. I kind of like breaking out into the groups too. I just feel like it's one thing we might do is to not always assign the same task to both groups. I think in this case it was kind of nice just to independently think about it. But any last thoughts from anyone? Or anything else we need to do tonight before we adjourn?
thanks for allowing me to be part of this process. It feels really nice to make this forward with you guys.
Back at you. Thank you for coming. Everybody.
I cherish you, Julie. I can use the word tonight.
Nice too.
All right. Good night, everybody.
So is there
Thank
anything
you.
we need to do going into
Dave, I'm going to give you back the host duties.
All right, I got it.